You will be transported to the core of human relationships, where love is found by the whirlwind of passions and contrasts. Blends deceit, treachery, forgiveness, hope, and disillusionment. Why do individuals start lying and concealing their intentions when it's so hard for them to acknowledge that they want to seek a divorce? Extramarital affair. I've been curious about this for a while since I couldn't understand how my wife came to this conclusion. To play this game, if she chose to do so, let her deal with the repercussions. It was Friday. Even though they were seated at the bar, the Alum Lounge was bustling with a vibrant crowd that was having a good time. Having a drink in hand, I wasn't there for the usual activities of dancing and drinking. Instead, I was there too. As I leisurely drank my drink, I was aware that it was dangerous and prepared for any difficulty that would put me in jail. Drink. I continued to stare at a pair across the room who had caught my eye for about an hour. I had been waiting for this, especially since he was the goal of my mission and frequently attended every Friday night. For around an hour, he was the focus of my objective. He was a frequent visitor every Friday night who probably came to see his wife's brother's band play at the Alamo. Every week, my perseverance eventually paid off when the time I had been waiting for finally arrived. The pair rose elegantly from their chairs to the dance floor as the music slowed to a waltz. From chairs and proceeded to the dance floor, allowing them to discover their rhythm. After that, I rose from my chair and came up behind him, joined him on the floor, and touched his shoulder to ask if I may cut in. He turned to confront the man attempting to encroach on his and his wife's territory. He turned to face me, and I swiftly hit. Admit it was a surprise attack, but the power in my repressed rage and fury were the causes of my 200 pounds, causing him to fall to the ground, where he was left exposed. Using the fact that I directly attacked his wife's dignity, I stood close by, appalled by what I saw, but her natural response forced her to accept. After seeing the incriminating picture of her husband with my wife, I offered her what I had taken out of my pocket. She repeatedly stabbed her spouse with the pointed toe of her 4-inch stiletto when her shock changed to wrath. I stood up and returned to my bar seat to await the arrival of the police. It appears that no one had gotten in touch with them, although I did have a couple. Many people come up to me to talk, but it was the band's brother who genuinely took a break as soon as they were done. Since the cops were dancing and his sister and brother-in-law were also present, he came up to me, but he didn't appear too aggressive, so I waited, sipped my drink, and when he arrived, he asked me why I had attacked Jim. I took a picture from my pocket and gave it to him. I said, "The woman in the picture is my wife." He looked at the image and gave it back to me. I guess I was wrong about what I always said about North being a jerk, but maybe now he'll trust me. It appears that your relationship isn't like that. Even if you imagine he didn't come here every Friday to support your band. Yes, he knows that I can't tolerate him, and that he only turns here on Fridays since my management arrangement involves free beverages for all of my family members. Why are you still here? I assumed that after punching him, you would want to go. I thought the police could be called after I attacked him, and I would rather be confronted here than at home. He's not popular, so it's unlikely that anyone phoned them, and many of the individuals in attendance tonight most certainly appreciated the, he remarked, spectacle. I should go join the others. Don't be a stranger. And he left to locate the other members of the band I assisted. His wife came over and asked if I had any more of those pictures, so I told her I had a couple. He then allowed him go to his booth. She asked if I could acquire copies of the dozen and 2 hours of footage, and I said I would. However, she seems to recognize that I had caused her a difficulty that evening, which I would assume would be resolved by informing you. Not that he would, but in his current state, he is unable to drive me home, and even if he could, I refuse to let him inside. But no worries, I'll bring you home. I'm prepared to depart at this time. As I was driving, I said, your brother informed me that your name is Norma, so since I now know yours, I guess it's only right that you know mine as well. Considering the circumstances, I can't say that I'm overjoyed to meet you, but I guess I'm happy to make your acquaintance, which may seem a little strange, but I'm happy that you gave me a present tonight. I'm perplexed because you've given me my independence. For a few years, I've suspected Jim of cheating on me, but I didn't have I need the money to hire a private investigator to collect the proof you gave me tonight. Circumstances with him that are similar to mine. I've suspected Vicky of being unfaithful for some time, but I just got money to employ someone, but I never told anyone how much my grandfather gave me when he went away. When we got to Vicky's house, she remarked, I'd like to use some of it to find out the truth about her. I would like to welcome you inside, but I'm afraid you may think I was attempting to get back to you. I want to talk to you about Jay and what happened when he slept with someone else, not why I want you to come in. You are aware of him. Therefore, you can be sure that I wouldn't sleep with you, since I wouldn't be much better than Vicky. Accompanied her into her home and into the living area, where she pointed to the couch and inquired whether I would want a drink or, I don't want to stay long if I'm still here, but if she could make me some coffee, that would be fantastic. When your spouse returns, I may decide to leave before things get out of hand again. I made it clear when I left him that I wouldn't be returning. I told him not to come back because I would definitely use my gun if he did. Would you really go that far? Not, but he is aware of my anger and how I respond to it. He also knows that I carry a revolver, and you appear shocked. Simply said, aside from law enforcement, I've never met a lady who has a pistol. I bought one myself. It's a Llama 380 for security when I go to the bank to deposit my salary check. Jim was there when I went to the kitchen to make coffee, and he understands how to operate what appears to be a tiny 45. Though he had someone like Norma waiting at home, I couldn't help but wonder why his wife was seeing my wife. I might have thought about pursuing Norma myself if I weren't still in a relationship with Vicky, but she was a pretty woman. Vicky and I wouldn't be together for long, and who knew what would happen? Then Norma came back and sat next to me on the coffee will be ready on the couch in around 5 minutes. How long has Jim been seeing your wife? At least a month. I hired a private investigator because I knew about it and wanted someone to check into it, although it may have been going on longer, but I've been wary of Vicky ever since our marriage began to shift around 2 years ago. Since our relationship changed, I think she has been cheating on me for more than a year. Jim may be the only one. Maybe he was the one I found her with, but he may be one of many. What did she say when you? I haven't challenged her yet, but I'm intrigued. I think she'll find out when your spouse calls her tomorrow. You've known her for a month, and you've allowed her to continue to see how she will manage it. After verifying it, I spoke with a lawyer about divorcing, and it turned out that our state allows divorces without blame legislation. The divorce will proceed regardless of who is at fault. It's a rather simple process that divides everything 50-50ths. 50 ths, I don't give a damn about the law, and I won't allow Vicky to profit from her betrayal. After learning about the divorce procedure, I began to rearrange and conceal my assets. 6 may receive half of that amount, but it will be far less than what was present a month earlier. Could you tell me more about Jim and his? Vicky plays cards with her sorority sisters on Mondays and Thursdays when they get together. College and attends a library book club meeting. On certain evenings, JYM goes bowling and has big gatherings. Spent 3 nights in my house while I was gone on a business trip, which is where the videos I have come from. I'm not sure when this started, but I travel for work around once a month. I'm not sure if it was an isolated incident. Therefore, it may have been a common occurrence for them, which would account for Jim's sporadic work excursions. However, I never considered the idea that they may be fake. What are your plans? I'm going to. In conclusion, I will seek legal assistance from a lawyer as soon as possible on Monday. Unfortunately, they are not available on Saturdays. I'm serious. I'd see one tomorrow. I can connect you with a lawyer who works on Saturdays if you'd like. I took out my phone and dialed a speed dial number I had stored, and once the call connected, I put it on speaker mode and told me to relax because I wouldn't need your assistance to escape trouble. How did you handle that? He must be among the lucky people if he wasn't very well liked and nobody bothered to call the cops. By the way, I'm on speaker and now with the jerk's wife, and I know that I'll grab every chance I can get, friend. Stated that she would be waiting at the door of any lawyers who are at the office tomorrow morning. I am aware that you don't often deal with such cases, but are you serious about using all the evidence you have against her to take her case? Norma meets my husband, and it looks like it will be a simple win. I handed her the phone and inquired about the meeting between fraternity brothers Sam and Norma. Position of the loo before granting permission to use it, so she might have some privacy. When I got back, I saw the phone was still on speaker, so I told him to take care of himself and that I was back and that we had resolved the situation. He immediately interrupted the conversation and put his phone back in his pocket as Norma started to say, I was heading to bed. Catch you later. Sam stated that he would file on Monday morning and have Jim served at his place of employment that afternoon. May be completed rapidly by copying your documents and changing yours with mine. They will be submitted on Monday, and your wife will be served that afternoon. That's the plan. But Vicky won't yield lightly. She'll hire a lawyer and challenge the divorce, and she'll put up every barrier she can. I'll try my hardest to get past them, Sam. Believes Mike will try to get a court order, but she can't stop the divorce. She's been ordered to count in to postpone the proceedings. But she intends to make it financially taxing enough for me to alter my mind. Do you think she'll succeed? I'm not going to make me reconsider. There's been a misunderstanding of time, but a prolonged affair is not feasible. There are also the harsh things she made about me during their personal discussions. I'll be sharing all the proof with you, so I should also let you know that you don't appear very well in their conversations, which makes me question why they even stayed with two people who seem to be losers like us. And I can totally understand why Jim remains with me. I'm the financial backbone of this family, and the pleasant part, at least for me, is that I have a strong prenuptial agreement in place, so I won't have to put up with any of the nonsense without fault. If you're the 1W. If the money, why didn't you consider hiring a private investigator? The money is locked up in a trust fund that I can't touch till I reach 30, and I still have 16 months to go. I can use it for medical and educational expenditures. But that's all until I'm 30. In addition, I make a third as much as Jim does at work, and my salary is what keeps us afloat. Current lifestyle, but I still lack the funds to hire an investigator, so I'm probably partially to blame. How would I have responded if I had voiced my suspicions about Jim's involvement with your wife? The prenuptial agreement was explicit about the consequences for adultery, so he might have stopped when I first suspected him of cheating. I guess it says a lot about him that he understood exactly what he would lose if I caught him. Thinks I won't ever notice what he's doing. When can I get copies of your findings? Sam has all the information. I instructed him to give you copies of the paperwork when you want to sign it. Then I looked at my watch and said I had to depart quickly. Could I perhaps touch in with you once in a while to see how things are going? Thank you again for the present you gave me. Maybe I could show my gratitude by taking you out to supper one evening. That sounds wonderful. I'll reach out to you after things calm down in my house. I'm not sure what awaits me there. Your husband, I suppose I'll call Vicky. I hadn't intended on addressing her till she received the divorce papers on Monday. I suppose I should have considered that before seeking your spouse. Oh well, it's too late to dwell on that now. When I returned home, Vicky looked to be her regular self, so I believed she hadn't received a call from her boyfriend. She welcomed me with a kiss and questioned about my lateness. I said that my boss wanted to celebrate signing the Johnson deal, so we stopped for a few. I tried phoning to let you know, but you didn't answer your cell or the house phone. I left my mobile on my desk at work. I didn't even hear the home phone ring. Have you eaten? I had some dessert, so I'm fine. I wasn't sure if I should go ahead, but I chose to grasp the opportunity. One didn't know how long it would be until I discovered another chance for closeness. While Vicky was out of the picture, I accepted her challenge. While we were doing this in bed, I couldn't get rid of the recollection of my wife's comments to her boyfriend. She realized that I had a small tool that couldn't. I handed her whatever she desired, and for the first time in our marriage, I followed Vicky's instructions to her boyfriend. As usual, I turned away and slept out, wondering how Vicky would react to this. This was the first time I hoped she was lying awake, since I hadn't cuddled up to her after making love and dozing off with her in my arms. Considering, questioning, or worrying about the modifications to our Saturday routine, which often involved getting up, ended up showering, but Vicky had different plans on the Saturday. Evidently distressed, she made the decision to express her love for me by repeating the events of the previous evening. Following that, we showered and I mowed the grass and pulled weeds from the flower beds, among other weekend chores, for the remainder of the day. When cleaning the automobiles, I was fortunate to choose to take advantage of the chances that presented themselves during. Vicky informed me over dinner that our lamps would be delayed for a time, so we decided to put. Aunt Flo arrived a day sooner than anticipated, so our plans were put on hold for a bit. Sunday went well with. Around midday, Vicky's mother came to take her shopping, so I decided to take some time off from my domestic responsibilities to inquire about Norma's well-being. She said that she had gone to Sam's office and finished the required documentation to start the divorce process following the acquisition of copies of the damning images, and when Jim returned, he pretended nothing had occurred, so I urged him to depart once she had examined the films. He refused to go, so I returned with my revolver and ordered him to leave within 10 minutes since the home was as much his as mine. Seconds. I made it obvious that there would be repercussions if he didn't go, and he could see by my tone that I meant. If you had heard, I would have reprimanded him for his disparaging statements. Would you have followed suit? Created about me in those films. How are things doing for you? Vicky doesn't appear to have heard from you. Either that or she's a fantastic actor, although now that I think about it, she most likely is. She's had me. You live and you learn. Did Sam mention when she was duped for years into thinking she was a loving and devoted wife? He promised to send your documents to the court first thing in the morning, but I'm not sure if he would actually do it. I had the same strategy, except I requested him to serve Jim at his place of employment in the afternoon, hoping it would work well. Major surprise to her, but it doesn't seem probable today. I apologize for giving you away, but I suppose I did. Didn't I destroy it myself by confronting your husband on Friday night? He will make it obvious that I'm after her even if he doesn't tell her. Talk at work on Monday. The key thing is that aside from the legal, everything will soon be resolved, and I'm prepared to move on with my. I'll give you the supper I promised, and we can enjoy a few drinks when we get together on Monday night. I'm busy moving out of the house as soon as Vicky gets home, so I won't know until late tomorrow if I can make it to the celebration. She goes for work, but I'll keep the house that her parents gave her when they retired and relocated to Arizona. Even though the house was named in Vicky's name, the plans were still available. If you can't make it, give me a call. Even though her parents gave her the house, there was still disagreement about it during tea. The divorce process Vicky entered into. I paid half of the mortgage payments with my wages, but the title was in my name. I wanted to. Sam promised me that there was a way to recover a portion of that investment when Vicky came back from her shopping trip. Decent likelihood of success. Vicky made supper, and then we unwinded on the sofa and watched TV until it was time for bed. Vicky was lying in bed with her near to me. I kissed her goodbye and told her that would be the final time she expected to see me that morning after work, anticipating that supper would be ready when I arrived. She was unaware that I had chosen to take the day off and leave the house, so when she returned, I went to get breakfast at a neighboring eatery to allow her time to depart for work. After I was done, I looked to see if Vicky had left, began gathering my belongings, and 30 minutes after I phoned him, my brother Tom showed up. By 10 o'clock, we had packed up everything I had and put it in his garage, where it would remain until I found a new place to call home, Tom. Until I found a more permanent place. He and his wife, Pat, graciously provided me a spare bedroom. I contacted Sam, who verified that Vicky and Norma's husband would be confronted at 2. On a whim, I called Norma to ask if she wanted some company as we waited for our husbands to call, and she invited me to stop over. I got her house and we sat at her kitchen table, sipping iced tea, just after 2 o'clock and discussed our predictions for the. I anticipated Vicky would call and deny anything had happened, so I suggested we have a conversation about the 2 cheats. I said, "You're going to Norma?" And Vicky would just lie and make excuses. When caught, cheats say things like that. It's not about what I believe. It's about what they do. They have been lying to me since you became engaged with your relationship, but they don't love me. They just love themselves. Husband, I might not trust a word she says even before, so why waste my time talking to her, which is much what I anticipated happening. Is there anything else we can discuss outside those 2? I told her that the Broncos are a joke, but she took it seriously, saying that it depends on how well Manning performs. He has been erratic over the last 2 seasons, and this year he appears to be more likely to be intercepted. If he can. I was impressed that she expressed exactly what I was thinking, and I thought the Broncos might have a chance to win. Nice conversation about football, especially Denver's defense, before my phone rang. When I realized it was Vicky and looked at the time, 20:35, I had to confront the music, so I changed. As I replied, "Good afternoon, this is Bob." I put my phone on speaker mode. What in the world is going on with this divorce nonsense? Typically, people do not refer to their ostensibly faithful spouse as a cheating spouse when they discover that they are cheating. Just in case you said it, you were doing that with Jim, weren't you? His wife feels the same way. Where did you even get the idea that you were having sex with Jim when he was served? The pictures and videos show. I sincerely hope you won't try to convince me that the videos the investigator collected for me are all I might assume that you have a miscommunication and that the individuals in the images and videos aren't you. Doppelganger, but I refuse to accept that Jim has a double who just so happens to be you. That's who my private. Vicky, the investigator, was caught on camera. Let's discuss this when we get home tonight. No, we will not. When you get home, you will discover that I have left a message for you. Must go through my lawyer, Vicky. I just hung up on Norma's phone. Started ringing and she looked at the screen, seeing that it was Jim, who never calls me during the. She laughed that day and added, I wonder what urgent matter has come up. The call, and switched on the speakerphone. Hello. It's me. What's all this talk about divorce? Norma told me they seem to be following the same script. What's her husband's take on it? I was just telling Bob that it sounds like you and your mistress are following the same script. Your words when I picked up the phone are nearly identical to what she said. When she called him, who's Bob? I'm your soon-to-be ex. I replied, why are you with my wife? We watched the video that his private investigator got, and we watched you with his wife. We figured that you wouldn't star in adult films. Check, much better than you've ever been. You're delusional. I retorted. Norma is far superior to the woman I was married to. He's far superior to you, even at your best, Norma added, exchanging a smile and a high five with me. Then she continued, just like he told his cheating wife a few minutes ago. From now on, all communication will go through my lawyer. You should find his card and the legal documents that were handed to you. You can come at 6. I'll be waiting on the front porch. When you come to collect your things tonight, bring your own pistol. I've got a lot of ammunition ready. I'll be seeking revenge for catching me off guard. You won't have to search. I'll be waiting for you. Norma and I had a chat. She thinks you're going to wait for him on the steps. I told her I would, but I don't want him to think I'm a liar or scared of him. I'll have dinner ready just in case you're hungry. I've got a couple of apartments to check out this afternoon, but I'll be back by 5. If he turns up early, I've got plenty of space here. You could move in with me if you like, but I'm only offering you a place to stay, not any special treatment, even so it wouldn't look right, and I won't give her anything she can use against me. I've got her trapped, and I don't want to give her any leeway. The offer still stands if you change your mind. I didn't find the apartments particularly appealing during my search, so I'm going to go for option 2. I went back to the Norless P. Lace. We sat on the front porch swing where Norma served iced tea and cookies. As we chatted, the topic turned to my pending divorce. Norma asked, what's your plan regarding your soon-to-be ex? I've already taken action. I'm moving out and initiating the. I replied that I had no desire for revenge. It seems futile. Any retaliation would only lead to escalation. I frankly don't have enough regard for Vicky to invest any effort into it. At 20 to 6, a car pulled into the driveway. Norma's husband emerged. He watched us on the swing before getting a baseball bat from the boot. With a grin, he came over, joking, I followed your advice, brought my game, holding the bat towards me while I looked for something I could use as a makeshift weapon. There was a loud bang, and I saw her husband collapse. I looked at Norma, who was holding what looked like a smaller C-45 aimed at her husband. He started shouting, you shot me, damn it. I was right, you're useless and dangerous, but it was only in the foot. Consider yourself lucky that I took good aim with this thing, she said, putting the firearm next to her on the swing. She took her phone out of her pocket and dialed. My husband attacked me with a baseball bat, and I had to defend myself. Call an ambulance. No, he's writhing in agony on the ground, screaming at me. Hune, not in a position to hurt me, she continued. I see. I'll hang up as soon as the police arrive, she said into the phone. Not unless he gets back on his feet and tries to attack me again. If he does, I won't, she added. Don't release the whole magazine into his torso. She ended the call, saying you should probably leave before the police arrive. There's no point in getting you involved in this. It'll be our word against his, and the bat has his fingerprints all over it. We'll stick to the truth about everything else until he pulled into the driveway. We'll tell them about waiting together for his and Vicky's frantic calls, what was said, and how informed him he could collect his belongings. At 6, I continued, I left to retrieve the pictures and videos for you and plan to return by 6 to be on hand in case he tries anything foolish. I arrived just after him and witnessed the entire altercation. Do you think they'll buy it as long as we stick to our story? It should be fine. She said that during our conversation. The guy rolled around on the ground, clutching his leg and swearing. Norma got some material from the house, and when she came back, we sat on the swing while waiting for the police to arrive. As the sirens got closer, 2 police cars came with 4 officers, guns drawn and pointing at us. They spread out and headed towards the porch while Norma and I raised our hands to show we were 2 officers attended to the injured man who said she shot me. The woman shot me. Once the police secured the area, an ambulance arrived to take the wounded man away. I told the officers to handle the baseball bat carefully, as it was evidence Norma and I were separated and taken to the police station. And we were put in separate rooms. A detective came in, and I told him what happened. 3 hours later, I was released and driven back to Norma's, where I got my car and went to Tom's place. Norma stayed with him. She contacted me at home about noon the next day to give me an update. It sounded like the cops accepted our explanation, since I was merely charged with firing a handgun inside city limits and was freed without bond. She stated that reflecting back on our experience at the station, we convinced ourselves that things will likely end out all right. I'd ask you for dinner, but given the circumstances, I feel it's best for us to keep our distance for a time. She said she agreed, but told me that she would remain in touch. Norma called to let me know that the event had made the local newspaper and asked if I'd seen it. Because I hadn't, I went to the 7-Eleven to get a copy of the paper. My name wasn't included, but Norma and her husband were highlighted. The article claimed her husband was in hospital but not in severe condition, and that she was charged but freed without bond. That afternoon, I received 11 calls from Vicky on my cell phone, all of which I deleted. I decided to answer the 12th call, although I was a bit impatient. Vicky said she needed to talk to me. She said she wanted to explain what occurred and why. She said she wanted me to know that she loved me and didn't want to lose me. I told her that maybe what I wanted to hear, but what I needed was to stop things with her for good. This was the last time I was chatting to her. I said I'd fight the divorce. I said I'd hire the best lawyer and make things tough for her. I said I've spoken to folks who've been through divorce, and I know what I can do. Vicky, you've threatened me, but you haven't learned a thing. You can't stop a divorce, but you can make it lengthy and costly. You can't compel me to accept you back or live with you. All you will do is squander our money on attorneys and court fees. If you want to spend years paying your lawyer, go ahead. Eventually, no, I've decided I'm going to obtain a divorce. After a brief pause, I propose that your opposition to the divorce may be due to my benefit. I may tell my attorney to stop the processes completely, since, to be honest, I don't see the necessity for it, as I have no plans to be married again, since I find being alone to be a debilitating worry, and it would also save me money and trouble. No expensive legal bills, no court appearances, alimony orders, and no disorganized assets division. The more I consider it, the more enticing it seems. So, go ahead and challenge it, Vicky, and I'll say no. That works perfectly for me. You never know when you could run into someone who wants to marry you. Side of a divorce with court expenses and legal expenditures. So I won't give in now. Must spend money, but I might also object to prevent you and your new partner from getting married. It's up to you. In a few months, Vicky will sign the paperwork, and if you don't, I'll follow my strategy. But one thing is certain, from your perspective, I hung up the phone after saying my final goodbyes to Vicky. A sequence of events transpired over during the next month, which included both good and bad things. Vicky chose not to sign and return the divorce documents, but she didn't get a lawyer to challenge the divorce, which Sam believes she would if she doesn't. It's not entirely accurate that if she signs and returns the documents, the divorce procedure will end and she won't be required to pay legal expenses. However, we don't want to inform her that we have proof of service and that the procedures would proceed if she doesn't respond. On a brighter note, Norma was able to secure a restraining order against her husband when he was charged with criminal threatening order against him, but the less advantageous elements included Jim hiring a lawyer to challenge the divorce. This may lengthen the procedure and raise expenses, and the district attorney running for re-election continued criminal allegations against Norma, presumably to prevent opponents from portraying her as forgiving of crime during the divorce. The election hearing proceeded with accusations against Norma, perhaps in an effort to avoid seeming to be forgiving of criminal activity by Vicky's absence from the divorce hearing was likely due to her opponent's belief that it would be beneficial to not participate. I knew I would be in the courtroom by the evening after the judge granted the petitioner's request. Norma asked me to supper and offered me housing once again when I was a free man, so you don't have to worry about the look anymore now that your divorce is finalized, she remarked, adding that although that could be the case for me, it's different for. I said, I'm not worried, and Sam said, you can't risk giving Jim anything that could be used against you. Will be simple due to the infidelity and the ball bat incident. Possibly the divorce will go without any problems. However, I mentioned that it's unimportant since part of it involves splitting assets, and my being here can make things more difficult for you. I'll be all right because I'm going to inherit my trust fund in a year, but the claim is for half the house and some of our savings. I responded that I've grown fond of you over the past few days, though it's probably not the best time to say this. Months, I don't want to do anything that may make things more difficult for you. I informed her that I understood that. More challenging for her, but I wanted to tell her straight out that I had grown fond of her in the past. She questioned why I hadn't told her that I didn't want to do anything that would make things more difficult for her over the past few months. I expressed my desire to be with her earlier, but I was concerned that she might not share my feelings. When she asked if I believed there was a possible, why she might feel the same way, I replied that I wasn't sure but that I was beginning to worry that they would use anything there against us in a court case where I might have to provide testimony. Both studies, so I need to limit any possible harm. Perhaps we could have dinner together once a week and clarify that we're keeping one another informed on our divorces because our husbands were the ones who started the separation, but even that may be dangerous. She gazed at me till I reminded her that we had to keep our distance until the legal proceedings were settled. I briefly realized what she meant when she said, "Why does life have to be so complicated?" I took Norma out to dinner once a week for the next 2 months, but it hurt to not go where I genuinely wanted, but I forced myself to as well. And in the meanwhile, I received around 3 or 4. Vicky called once a week to urge me to talk to her and to return home, and Norma's trial ended up becoming. Norma's husband was a major witness in the district attorney's case, which was very disappointing given his. Norma first denied that the bat was intended for me, but then unintentionally revealed that it was for me. See, the district attorney was disappointed when Jim messed up indicating he hadn't prepared the witness properly. Norma stuck to the agreed story, and then it was my turn to testify. I know I gave false testimony, but I didn't care. This guy shattered my marriage, and I felt like I owed him some form of revenge. The jury deliberated for less than 15 minutes before obtaining a hung judgment. He was imprisoned to a year and a day, but he demonstrated his idiocy even more by openly threatening me in front of the judge, the jury, the prosecutor, and the crowd. "I'll get you for this weight." I smiled at him as he stated the prize because I knew that one day he would want revenge, and I was certain that his outburst would be recorded, allowing him to be sent back to prison. I accepted Norma's offer to live with her after the proceedings were over. On my first night there, she came over. She came into my room and snuggled in a bed next to me. She murmured, "I've been." After months of fantasizing about it, she touched my arm one day, and her husband and I made a phone joke about how Norma was considerably better than Vicky in bed, as it turned out, and we had a great evening. Everything happened again in the morning, and ultimately, nothing changed the next night. We lowered the number to 3, and I had to suggest that we cut back on our activities so that we could have the stamina to work. We then moved to 5 times a week, once at night, with 2 or even 3 sessions on the weekends. I wish I could claim that although the narrative ended happily ever after, Norma and I actually had an intense relationship that occasionally felt too much to handle, but we ultimately understood that our connection was. We truly like one other based just on our physical close scene. SS and shared love for football. Love was not a factor, but our love for one another and the strength of our physical bond kept us going till she spoke. I packed my things and went during the day to meet someone else, telling her I would be there for her. The drama of my life came to an end when she answered that she would need me if she ever needed it, but I never heard from her again. Transpired 2 days after Vicky's divorce was finalized. She immediately contacted after receiving the documents in the mail. She told me, "You are a vile person. How could you betray me in this way? I never choose to put up with any of this bullshit. How is it fair that you make twice as much as I do? Additionally, you are seeking $330,000 for your alleged part of the house, yet you have no right to the money I owe you." I couldn't help but giggle at her indignation when I added, "Oh, but you did agree to it. It's mine, and I'm not paying you a cent." Agreed that if necessary, you can take out a second divorce by not obtaining legal advice and by not disputing the divorce. If you look at it positively, the mortgage on the property to pay off my half only costs you $30 million to get rid of me is a great deal, but I didn't want to. She objected as I hung up, and I was glad she couldn't see how I was feeling. In all honesty, I hadn't wanted to let her go either, but I couldn't continue to be with someone who cheated, so I stuck to the. This story is full of emotions and twists that reflect the complexity of the belief that once a cheater is a cheater forever. In interpersonal connections, it emphasizes how crucial it is to discover the truth about oneself and look for what counts most in life, despite difficulties.